Hi, my name is Sheryl Friesen, and I grew up in a little town called Burns Lake, BC, which is just west of Prince George. When I was 18, I moved to Prince George, where I met my husband. We've been married for over 20 years, and we have 4 kids. And after COVID is over, we're really looking forward to spending time with more friends and family and just being able to relax and enjoy each other that way.
Hey, my name is Jared. I grew up in Edmonton. I moved out of there when I was 19, so I've been not at home for the last 5 years. So probably after COVID, I'm gonna take off a couple of weeks and spend it with my family because I haven't seen any of my aunts or uncles or cousins for a long time. I want to throw a big feast for them and see them all. Have a classic Ukrainian dinner with all of them.
Hello, my name is Kimi, and I'm a pastor here at Gateway Church. I'm a homegrown Prince George girl. I've lived here pretty much all my life. My husband and I have been married for almost 25 years. We have 3 incredible kids. Our first, Noah, is married, and then we have 2, Trinity and Eden, that are both in high school. And I can't wait for COVID to be over because at our home, we love to entertain. Both my husband and I love having friends over, and we can't wait to have a games night and just have lots of laughter and good times. And I'm also really creative, and I can't wait to have my creative friends over so that we can have a creative night together.
So I don't remember a time in my life without Jesus. I grew up in a Christian home. My parents both loved God, and they taught me from the time I was little just how much Jesus loved me and just that he was just a big part of our everyday life. My mom, she prayed with us every night, and we just knew that we could take all of our details to Jesus, and he took care of us.
Before I encountered Jesus, my life was really dark and really hopeless. I was depressed and an alcoholic, and I didn't really have much passion for anything in life. But I'm really glad that Jesus pulled me out of that life because it was going to be a short one.
Before I encountered Jesus, well, growing up in this wonderful community, my family and I, we engaged in all of the outdoor activities Prince George offers, like camping and fishing and sports and community, and I really had a wonderful childhood. It was later on in my teenage years and my young adult years where things kind of got a little crazy, and I started to make some really poor decisions for myself. I got into a really unhealthy relationship as a teenager, and started making bad decisions around drinking and smoking pot and smoking and going to the bar and partying a lot and just making really unhealthy choices for myself. And then that relationship ended, and there was a whole lot of baggage and hurt. But pretty soon after, on New Year's Eve, I met my husband at a country and western bar. And we were both living the same kind of lifestyle, working all week and going to the bar on the weekend and partying and hanging out with friends. And we moved in together. And then after a couple of years, kind of started wondering, is this it? Is this all there is to life? Is this what life is all about? Is working and then partying, working and partying, and kind of started looking around for meaning and for life and for purpose.
So the way I came to know Jesus was through a family who loved God. So my parents taught me a lot about Jesus when I was little. And I went to Sunday school and church every week, so I learned all of the Bible stories about how, just about God's character and who he is. So when I was 10 years old, felt like I needed to just go another step in my faith and just make a real commitment to God. I knew all the stories, but I just felt like I needed to come before God and just commit my life to him. There was a song we sang at church, based out of Psalms 51. It was, "Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me." So I just went off to my parents' room by myself, and I just sat before God, and I just cried my heart out, and I just wanted him to just know that I was serious about him, and I knew he loved me so much, and I wanted to love him back, and I wanted him to just cleanse me and forgive me from anything that was holding me back from him.
How did I come to know Jesus? One day I was going home from work with a plan in mind to end my life, and I literally had to stop dead in my tracks because I had this pounding voice or pounding feeling in my head that I needed to call the kids camp that I used to go to. It was Circle Square Ranch in Halkirk, Alberta. And I kept trying to walk home, and this voice, this feeling kept pounding in my head that I had the phone. So after about 5 minutes of trying to battle my way through this pounding, I decided to phone the camp and ask them if they needed another guy staff for the summer, and they said yeah. So I went, and for the first month, I had no idea what I was doing there. And at the end of every week, the campers get to give their testimonies of the week. And this little girl, she was like half the height of everyone. She was bald. She was kind of sickly looking. And she gave her testimony. She was talking about how she was battling cancer. And she just wanted to share a little bit of hope with us. She wanted to let us know that even though her life was possibly going to be really short, she didn't want to spend it doing anything else but worshiping Jesus and sharing the love of Jesus. And that night, I went back to my cabin, pretty weepy, and with my eyes opened.
We had 3 different friends that invited us to go to church. And so finally, after the 3rd invitation, we accepted and we went to church. And honestly, I'll never forget that day because I seriously thought that when I walked into that church, there was going to be this red spotlight just shining over me, and it was going to expose all the mistakes, all the bad choices, all the bad things I had done in my life, and that everybody would know my sin. But instead, when I got there, I encountered these incredibly accepting and loving people. They just loved my husband and I for who we were. And they didn't have life perfect, and they were just trying to figure things out, but they were passionate about doing it with God and pursuing Jesus. And so we started attending Bible studies, and a couple months later, I was driving home from a Bible study, and I pulled over to the side of the road, and I'll never forget that moment too. I was in my little white car and on the side of the road on the old Caribou Highway road, and I said to Jesus, I can't do this anymore on my own. I need you. I want to ask you to forgive me of all of those choices that I've made and all those mistakes that I've made. And I felt just a complete forgiveness wash over me. And I asked him to come, and just that I would have a relationship with him for the rest of my life. And I instantly felt this peace and this joy that just came over me. And if you knew me before Jesus, I was angry. I was short-tempered. I was frustrated. And so I welcomed these new feelings of peace and joy that God had given to me.
For me to walk with Jesus is to never walk alone. My grandpa, he used to play a song on his violin, or he played lots of songs on his violin when I was a kid. And for our wedding, he came and played 2 songs. He played What a Friend We Have in Jesus and Take Jesus With You When You Go. And I feel like that kind of sums up my walk. Jesus is my best friend. He's with me wherever I go. He's always before me, beside me, behind me. We've walked through many dark times in our lives and many good times in our lives, and Jesus is with us always. 11 years ago, we had a stillborn baby, and it was probably one of the darkest times of my life, but it's also a time where I really saw a deeper side of God's love for me. He really showed me that he was truly with me, and there were days when I didn't know if I could even function, but those are the days that I felt like his arms were around me and he was holding my hand and keeping me going. He is hope. And there's a verse that I have found in the Bible that just brings so much life, and it kind of just rings really true. It's in Hebrews 6:19, and it says, "We have this certain hope, like a strong, unbreakable anchor, holding our souls to God himself. Our anchor is fastened to the mercy seat, which sits in the heavenly realm beyond the sacred threshold." And I just feel like that is just such a big part of every situation that we go through. We can go straight to Jesus and just know that we have hope in him and he can help us through no matter what.
Walking with Jesus has given me a new set of eyes. I'm thinking back to the first time I wore a pair of glasses. I didn't have to wear glasses until I was like 20, and I was really surprised at all the things that I wasn't able to see before. The distance, the colors, just the clarity and everything. Thinking back to my life before I was saved, it just felt like everything was a little bit blurry, a little bit dark. But now with Jesus, it's totally weird. Just, I can't imagine what it's like to be where I was before and stumbling through life and thinking that it was normal compared to now. I see hope in everything. I see passion in everything. I see life in everything. I see the goodness in everything. And I'm really glad that God just shone a light on all those things in my life that I could have had and now I do get to have.
When I think about what it's like to walk this life with Jesus, I just can't imagine it any other way. Now that I have him in my life and in my heart, it is like the greatest gift that I've ever opened, and I just never want to let go of it and never want to return it or give it back. It's a gift that just never stops giving. You see, all those negative things I used to do and all those bad habits that I had learned and bad decisions that I had made, God has exchanged those. He's given me forgiveness from him, but he's also taught me how to forgive myself. And forgiveness really has been an area where I have had victory and I have felt freedom. I have been released. And so I just can't imagine living any other life than a life with God. He is so gracious. He is so good. He is so loving. And he's constantly teaching me just so tenderly, just shining his light through me so that I just am like it's unbreakable that I want to share the love of God with other people. It's just unstoppable that I want the world to know if he can work on a messed up girl like me, he can work on anybody. God is so good and so gracious.
The day that I encountered Jesus was a day that I began to understand how much God loves me. He desires a relationship with me, and that blows my mind away because he's so vast and so amazing, and he created just this amazing universe and so many details, and yet he still knows every detail about me. His love is so unconditional, and he is so forgiving, and I can take every care that I have to him, and he can just help me through every situation in my life, whether it's hard or whether it's good. He's always with me.
The day I encountered Jesus, I figured out what fresh air was. I figured out what seeing meant and hearing meant. It was like a shroud was lifted off my whole body and my whole spirit. It was such an intense amount of sensitivity I felt at that point. Sensitivity to my whole physical character and my whole spiritual character. It was like I could finally kind of desire what joy meant in my life and kind of desire what love meant in my life. And it's still a journey that I'm heading on, but that day was a really big change, even just to decide I want to think about wanting those things.
The day I encountered Jesus, it felt like everything was going to be okay. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff to still deal with, but it felt like with him walking beside me, he was going to show me the next step. He was going to show me which direction to go. And it just felt like with him, it was going to be okay.